The reason why we're doing this video is because I wanted to explain my prep with James and have some good inputs on what this means and what can we practically do with it. And I hired him as a coach, and well, you know what, you can actually say exactly what I was telling you whenever I hired you for a coach, and I came up with this concoction of weight vests.
Yeah. So he contacted me. He's like, basically, I've got this idea. So this was his idea, not mine. I would have never thought of this, but he had this idea of putting on a weight vest as he prepped for his contest, as he lost weight, to basically replace the weight he was losing. There's a number of reasons why that actually might work, and we'll talk about this later. We'll talk about it actually has worked really well. Typically what happens is, you start your contest prep and you get in an energy deficit. Here's your energy expenditure, here's your energy intake, you got this deficit. But what happens is, as your body mass decreases, your energy expenditure goes down because you got less weight to carry around, right? So to keep losing body fat as your contest gets closer, you have to keep dropping your calories. And we all know, anyone who's done this, the further you drop your calories, the more hungry you are, you feel shitty, everything. So his idea was, he's going to keep his energy expenditure up here by basically artificially adding the weight that he's losing. And then
every 5 pounds.
Yeah, every 5 pounds, and keeping his calorie intake the same.
My initial thought process of this, and it was very funny too, because even the video, I sent him a recorded video of me trying to sell him on this idea. The video is me kind of talking very fast, trying to sell it, because I know how it was initially going to sound. Okay, I knew it was going to sound like, what? You want to do what? Wait a minute, what? This doesn't sound very practical. And I couldn't emphasize enough how not practical this was. But since I am the gym owner, I get to dress how I like, and this was part of my little experiment. I was able to wear this vest accordingly. But I did start off with a 12-pound vest, which was very practical. And as I continued to lose weight in the process, I would just always try to match my original 165-pound starting weight. Within 17 weeks, my calories have remained the same. I'm on average 1 pound, because in 17 weeks I was down 17 pounds, so it's on average about 1 pound a week. And as of now, I don't have, this is already going to be my 11th bodybuilding show, and I've been there. I've been where Trexler has been. I have been to the very low body fat percentage many a times, where now I'm foggy brain, talking very zen-like, like I'm borderline high, and just because fasting, it is in a sense kind of a form of fasting, just slowly starving yourself. All the things that comes with contest prep, I've been there. I've had the horrible nights where I wake up and I can't go back to sleep, and hunger issues, and just all these things. And for some reason, none of them has seemed to arose yet at the low body fat that I am right now.
Yeah, and I think there's probably some reasons for that. Well, mainly because he hasn't had to drop his calories. And so, there's data out there suggests that sometimes, like what we call high energy flux, so having a higher calorie intake and higher energy expenditure works better than having a low energy flux where you have low energy intake and low energy expenditure. And so, and what his experience is, I think, is tying in with even some of the obesity literature, where post-obese people has been shown who maintain really high activity levels, they do better maintaining their fat loss, and it's because they're kind of they're creating that deficit more through energy expenditure rather than energy restriction. But he's doing it in a different way. It's not that he's exercising more or moving around more. He's just kept the energy cost of the activity he's already doing at a certain level, rather than having it go down, with time. And in fact, you've actually kind of pushed it a little bit now.
Yeah, so there's two parts to this story. And maybe you guys can even help me fill in a little bit more on this. If you have me, where I used to get up to, back in the bulking, a long time ago, back when we used to bulk brush, but I used to get up to 210 pounds. Okay, my pant waist was at 20. So it wasn't like I was just all muscle, obviously. But at my peak strength of 205 pounds, 210 pounds, I was squatting a lot, I was leg pressing a lot. For me to get from there all the way down to about 140 pounds, that's a 65, 70 pound loss. It does not matter how great or how perfect your programming is. You can expect some type of muscle atrophy that your body's not constantly walking around with the additional 60 to 70 pounds. So if you can show me that, then you can still scale it in the micro of just a 20-pound difference. Okay, even in the such minute ways of, man, your legs look a little fuller this go around. You know, we're bodybuilders. We try to look for the smallest little edge. Okay, now I wanted to go ahead and press that limit. Though 165 to 145 contest weight is going to be 20 pounds, I said, okay, well, if that's a 20-pound gap, what if I can make it, you know, almost another 20 pounds over my original? Well, now you're looking at a 40-pound gap. If I can get up to 182 pounds and then my contest weight is 142 pounds, well, now you are looking at a little bit of a significant difference, and dare I even say muscle hypertrophy in the smallest minute way. But even the cost of doing that, as opposed to little slight muscle atrophy in the slightest way, well, now you're looking at maybe something that has a little bit of a significance as far as quadricep glute muscle retention as getting ready for a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Did that make any sense?
Yeah, I the approach. I mean, you texted me about it the other day.
Yeah, the other night.
Yeah, the other night.
You know what?
Yeah, I was like working, and it was late, and you're texting me like, so here's a graph I made on a napkin. I'm like,
I gotta show everyone this. me and my graph napkins.
I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? But it's kind of funny. It's impractical, but it's a really smart, interesting approach. And I think one of the things I like about it is you mentioned some of those other factors about prep, the foggy thinking and the sleep issues and hunger. And I've always been kind of adamant that people tend to implement cardio a little bit haphazardly and maybe thoughtlessly, in the sense that they look at cardio as just calories burned.
Yeah.
But they fail to consider the recovery burden. I mean, we can overtrain the heck out of somebody with no resistance training at all.
Yes.
And so what I love about your approach, what I think it's the most recoverable way to implement energy expenditure. I mean, you probably have virtually no recovery burden from just hitting a normal amount of steps with a reasonable load that you're carrying around.
Yeah, I'm slowly progressively just gaining weight, just slowly throughout the course of what's going to soon to be, by the time I do my show, a 20-week prep so far of just slowly gaining weight and then just keeping that gap of the deficit intact.
I should say I didn't kind of connect this until about 30 seconds ago, but one of the best preps I ever had, by far the best prep I've ever had, I didn't think about it, but during the time I did it, the thing that separated it from the rest of my preps was that I was running a study at the time with resistance training. And so I would walk to work, I would walk home, and then during the day it'd be like working the gym floor as a trainer, training people for the study, loading the leg press with 900 pounds, unloading it, loading it. And I just made the connection that when you're like us, you compete bantamweight, loading around a 45 plate for several hours a day, I mean, not a dissimilar thing of non-exercise, very recoverable, unplanned physical activity.
Yes.
You know?
I do think, and we can discuss this further, you mentioned the practical limitations of it. I think, obviously this is not something that would work for Gen Pop, obese clients losing weight, because they have to, their goal is to keep the weight off, and that means they would have to wear a weight vest indefinitely, and nobody's going to do that, right? But for competitors who are just temporarily losing weight, it can work really well. I could also see a potential limitation like heavier bodybuilders who have a lot more maybe mass to lose, that it might be impractical, like the size of the weight vests or the amount of weight they would need to add might be impractical maybe, as far as, or cumbersome, again, I'm not familiar with the size of the vests or how they are, but I think for other competitors, I think it could be a very viable strategy if someone can fit it into their lifestyle. So
if nothing else, it's at the very least, we can all appreciate the proof of concept. Essentially, of when you talk about metabolic adaptation, we know that as long as the acute deficit isn't huge, it's really not a resting metabolic rate thing. It kind of exposes the fact that if you can really hone in on that non-exercise activity, which is what we've always kind of shown with the research is what's really dictating it, if you can attack that head on, even if it's not necessarily a practical application, it's at least a proof of concept
Yeah.
that in this instance it's panned out quite well. You know?
Yeah. You know, I can remember, and so can you as well, especially when HIIT was a big thing, what, 7 years ago, 8 years ago? And we used to get anxiety, you know, about the HIIT part of our contest prep. We'd be like, we can work out, we can do the incline treadmill at a level 3.5, whatever. We can even do the elliptical, but for that 10-minute HIIT, I mean, we started, you know, that was scary. I mean, because it hurt us, and it's so weird looking at it now that we're very low in calories, we're very low in body fat, and we're actually like purposely hurting ourselves and beating ourselves up on a HIIT cardio. We're not really giving our bodies the funds necessary to be able to pay for something like that at that cost.
Yeah, and hurt, obviously not in the literal sense, but in the idea that the recovery is so intensive when it comes to that type of exercise, and psychologically it is draining to muster up the kind of psychological arousal required for an all-out 30, 40, 60-second sprint on the bike, and then 10 more.
Yes.
I mean, it is a lot to add in at that stage of the game.
Yeah. Now, of course, one other thing I'm going to have to do also is I'm going to have to taper off. One thing that would not be very smart is once I compete in Vegas and everything's done and done, and I'm getting reward foods and eating, is to just take everything off and be like, well, that was a fun experience in the end. I mean, I can imagine I'm going to put on the weight pretty quick. So, which the weight should actually come on. It usually comes on me pretty quick even afterwards. So it would have to be tapered of, okay, no, this comes off now. Okay, now the ankles come off after a few weeks. Now the vest. And I think the reason why it also worked really well with me is because this was something that I was really passionate about doing. So I was able to do 90% of the day. Okay, like I'll wake up and I'll strap everything on, and I would go to work, and I wouldn't take it off until I would get to the apartment midday, take an hour nap, strap it back on, and then I would leave it on until it was nighttime. Now, let me ask you this too, because I had some